So welcome back to the UMB Pulse. Today we're here talking all things tech and equity with one of UMB's own Maryland Carey Law alums, a shaker and a mover who's pushing Baltimore City into the future.
Today's guest is absolutely one of those people. Kenya Asli, she's bridging the digital divide right here in Baltimore City. She's the director of the Mayor's Office of Broadband and Digital Equity, which means it's all about high-speed internet, public access, and Kenya is the one steering that ship.
And I think what's great about her story, like so many of the guests that we've had recently, Charles, is that she started out at Morgan State University. She studied social work. She went on to graduate school here at UMB and wound up with a law degree. And as we'll hear her explain, her path has kind of taken her somewhere where she didn't exactly think that, she wasn't planning to be where she is today, but she's doing a bang up job working for the city, making change. And, I tell my kids all the time, like they're young adults, and I'm like, where you are today in your job is not necessarily where you're going to be in 10 or 15 years. And we've had a few guests recently who've had that same kind of trajectory.
Right. So it sounds like her career went from dial-up to DSL to now she's kicking into high gear with that gigabit fiber. So let's dive in and hit the internet superhighway with Kenya Asli.
You're listening to the heartbeat of the University of Maryland, Baltimore, the UMB Pulse.
Kenya, I'd like to just thank you for joining us today, one of our very own Maryland Carey Law alum here to spread the word about the good works that you do here in Baltimore City.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we appreciate it. And to jump right in with what I just alluded to, you are a graduate from UMB, and you also have an undergrad from Morgan in social work. So I'm
Yes.
very curious. Like, was that your original intended path of study? Did you know where you were going with it? I kind of imagine, yeah, when you got that degree, maybe this job that you're in now didn't even really exist. So tell us.
No, it didn't. After completing my undergrad from Morgan State University in social work, I knew that I wanted to go a step further. Morgan gave me a great foundation in working with neighborhoods and communities, but I knew that there was something bigger. There were folks like Barbara Mikulski who had really influenced a lot of my decision. I had a great boss at the time. His name is Michael Sarbanes, who said, "Ken, you really ought to consider law school." And so I did. And my time at the University of Maryland Carey Law was awesome because I was able to marry what I learned about the conditions in Baltimore City with what I was learning in law school. So I felt like I gave myself a custom designed education because when we're in property law, I have questions about tenant landlords and knowing because I was already working with folks that were facing some challenges in that area. So I was able to apply what I was actually doing full time because I went to school full time and I worked full time. So I was able to apply what I was doing every day in Baltimore City neighborhoods to my education at UMB, and it worked. It was great.
And so what did you think you were eventually going to do with it?
So you know how we have these ideas, these thoughts, these plans. Life rarely ever goes that way. So once I started in law school, I really got interested in family law. I was turning completely away from the community work. It was great. I'd done it, but I got very, very interested in family law. So after law school, I worked with a local attorney. She is Tatasha Harris. She is a family attorney, and said, "Listen, I'm not sure if I'm ready to fully commit, but can I at least work with you for a little bit? Can I clerk with you for a little bit so I get some experience?" And I did, and it was great. It was a lot of work, and I still felt torn is there were issues that were very important to me that I was not working on in family law. So I went back to the community work. I actually started working for Baltimore City Department of Public Works. Then I went over to the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. From there, I started working for the Baltimore City Office of Information and Technology. I had no idea that I would end up there, but I will say this. I will say this. I had a friend. I had a friend who was, and she was actually a student over at the School of Social Work, University of Maryland School of Social Work. And she says, Kenya, I want you to tell me if there is a class that you lawyers take that tell you you can do anything. And just as I said, you know what, if I ever take that class, I'll let you know. Sure enough, there was a seminar. All of the graduating law students were called into the ceremonial courtroom, and one of the professors, Brenda Bratton Blum, I am calling names, but Professor Blum, she gave us this speech. And one of the things that she said is, you can do anything. She said, you have the skills, you have the experience, you have the relationships, you have the depth of knowledge that will allow you to do just about anything. And sure enough, the skills that I learned from UMB, the relationships I developed at UMB, the ability to apply all of that to technology, to workforce development, to law, to any area that that I decided to work in, it's worked. I've actually had my former CIO said, Kenya, you are unique. He said, I can drop you into any area, any topic, and you will apply your skill set and you always deliver. So that's what I got from the University of Maryland School of Law, Carey Law. It's been an amazing experience.
That that sounds wonderful. Like it's good to be a Jack or Jill of all trades. I really
Yeah.
think of having that broad education. That's where, liberal arts education is great for, and it's even better when you get that exposure in a professional and a graduate school too. So, with all that said, based on your journey, we have some fresh graduates from Maryland Carey Law this year. So, what advice would you give them as they're trying to figure out their journey now that they, have that degree in hand?
Okay. If you already know what you want to do, there are folks. I had some classmates who they were, as a matter of fact, Nancy, I had a classmate who was already a surgeon. So I went to the night school. It's a little different feeling. So I had she was actually the head of surgery for a local hospital, but she was in law school. So if you already know where you want to focus, you have a passion for health, you have a passion for cybersecurity, what your passions are, then you're probably set. But if you, like me, and there are a few of us, like me, if you have a very clear skill set that UMB helps you to develop, you get to choose where you work and how you work. So my advice to you is to figure out where your passions are and apply your skill set there. And don't just stop there. I will say, while I was in law school, my children were very young, one in daycare and one in elementary school. I taught my children, if you ever want anything from me, I gave them, for those of you who have not attended law school, we call it CRAC or IRAC. It's conclusion, rule, analysis, conclusion, or the issue, the rule, the analysis, the conclusion. So my children now, even when they were younger, Mom, I really want to go to this dance. Okay, my answer is no. Now you have to convince me otherwise. And they would use that outline to craft their argument. So, and they are actually, my daughter is a therapist and my son is in IT. So it works. It's the skills that you get. It's the relationships that you can develop. And not only that, because you are attending University of Maryland Carey Law in Maryland, right? So because you're in Maryland, you get to really get your feet not just wet, but covered, drenched in what's happening in our state. So when I am communicating, we do a lot of advocacy with the General Assembly. My ability to walk into any senator or delegate's office and communicate the issues that we're working on in a very clear way that I know they'll understand. I learned how to do that through law school. You learn how to advocate. You figure out how to communicate with your elected officials very well through that law school experience. So what I'd say to anyone's graduating, focus on your skills. Be clear about what your skill set is, and then apply it to a place that turns you on, a place that reflects your passions. I did it again, didn't I? Okay. For anyone graduating, I would recommend you focus on your skills. Think about what your what tools you have in your tool set, and then apply it to an issue that also ignites your passions.
I think your kids learned well. I'm just imagining them taking out some poster board and be like, "Mom, here's a 5-point analysis of why we have to go to Hershey Park this summer."
Oh, they would do that.
Oh,
Summer,
really?
oh yes. In the summers, I'm at work, they're at home. So they were ready to leave the house. Like, no, 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 no. You're gonna write it. You're gonna read a book or you're going to read an article. I want a summary on the article. And you know the outline format. I want to know what your position is and apply that outline format to me what you think. So yes, my kids are excellent at debate, by the way.
I bet they learn from the best.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
So now moving to the present, Kenya, for your current role. So what does the Office of Broadband and Digital Equity do, and what's your day in, day out look like?
The Office of Broadband Digital Equity, we are a program of the Baltimore City Office of Information and Technology. Our charge, for the most part, is to close the digital divide in Baltimore City. Now, that sounds huge, but we've broken it down into 4 goals. We know that the digital divide is closed once all Baltimore City residents have access to a computing device. They know how to use that device. Number 2, all Baltimore City residents have access to technical assistance and training. And that's 2 and 3. And then number 4 is all Baltimore City residents have access to high-speed, reliable internet. Now, how did a person with a law degree get into this conversation? I'll tell you what happened. I was the director of strategic initiatives for BSIT, and I was actually hired. I used to call myself the Olivia Pope. So anyone who's ever watched Scandal, I was the Olivia Pope of BSIT, because my boss would say, something's broken, I need you to go over there and fix it. Now, that is absolutely the role of an attorney in a lot of ways. But my job was to fix challenges, fix problems. And I was working on any number of IT-related projects, from figuring out all of our contracts, coming up with some kind of contracts matrix, to negotiating a better deal for software implementation, right? So I was the jack of all trades. And then COVID hit. And my boss said, we've got a ton of computers in storage. How can we help Baltimore City schools? Because we knew that Baltimore City school students were going home. Many of them did not have devices. So what could we do? I figured it out. And that turned into, hey, so we have this broadband strategy that we haven't really done anything with. Can you make it happen? And so I did. We very, very quickly operationalized the strategy that had been sitting on the shelf for quite some time. And a couple years later, I am the director of Broadband Digital Equity. And so day in, day out, right now, I am working on developing a revenue model for long-term sustainability of digital equity in Baltimore City, especially in this political climate. That's what day in, day out looks like. I'm actually on my other screen here analyzing Baltimore City policy to ensure that Baltimore City agencies are thinking about digital equity as we are communicating and working with the public. I have an amazing team of folks who are we are managing grants for nonprofit organizations, and I have a huge infrastructure project where we are actually building out our middle mile. So the middle mile is very important infrastructure that allows new ISPs to attach to our infrastructure to provide connectivity to residents and businesses. So, but I had to figure all that out. Again, the thing about having a law degree in IT, it's you don't know anything about IT when you start, and you have to learn all of it. It's interesting to be the lawyer in the IT space.
I bet. I bet. What's the number one comment that you hear from city residents about either internet or technology?
Number one comment is there is one internet provider in the city actively operating in the city now, and that's Comcast. Because they are the only one, the number one comment is residents think that if we had more competition, we'd have better prices, different packages. They want variety as opposed to feeling pigeonholed into working with the one and only. So we've taken up the charge, and we actually have at least 2 new ISPs coming into Baltimore City by the end of this year, as a matter of fact. So I'm excited about that. But the number one comment, the one thing that everybody in Baltimore City wants, they want more options. They want more opportunities. Comcast is also a cable company, and a lot of folks are cutting the cord on cable and they're switching to streaming services. So how do you do that? So yeah, the number one is we need more options.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And then in comparison, what's the top or what's the top at the top of mind for businesses when it comes to internet or digital equity?
For businesses, it's
Mhm.
almost the same comment. But what I'm hearing from businesses is we want more options. We want more affordable options. That's the thing. We've got, even for residents, we're hearing residents who are paying $200 a month for what they call the triple play, and they don't even own a home phone. The triple play includes a phone line, right? But you get sold a package because if you bundle, you save, right?
Yep. That's
And
what
our
it's about.
businesses are saying, hey, some businesses larger corporations, they've already got it figured out. But for your smaller businesses, a lot of your storefronts. So for our small businesses, what we're hearing is it's not just about the options for them, but also having options for their customers, especially for like your restaurants. And they want their customers to be able to log on to internet and use the resource while they are shopping or dining. So Baltimore City has launched a public Wi-Fi network, primarily at rec centers and senior centers. But we are going to deploy our public Wi-Fi to one of the main streets. As you all may know, Baltimore City has 10 Main Streets districts, and these Main Streets districts are for small businesses. They have a ton of small businesses. So we are launching a public Wi-Fi along the Pennsylvania Avenue Main Street. It should go live by September of this year.
It's incredible that that's being done. What's the question of top of mind of tourists? Because I'm imagining for myself, like what you're saying about free internet. When I go to big cities, it's like, okay, my cell signal's not working. I need to post or I need to find where I'm going. I'm trying to see if there's maybe free Wi-Fi, from the city or the tourism agency that
Yeah.
at least can get me connected. And so what happens is I'll be frustrated, maybe going to an event or something, and it's like all the free Wi-Fi is for everybody who lives there because it's, offered as like free Xfinity Wi-Fi, or I forget, there was a provider in Florida that was everywhere in Tampa. That was like, well, I'm not a subscriber for that. And so it's, creates an exclusive club for residents. And as a tourist, I'm like, I want to promote how much fun I'm having in your city, but I can't right now.
Yeah. So Baltimore City, especially if you're in the downtown area, there is a public Wi-Fi network anyone can tap into. but that's in our tourist area. Our residents and our businesses are also interested. So all you have to do, you go to free Be More Wi-Fi and you can log right into our public Wi-Fi. It's again free. I will tell you, we did, it was so, we thought we had the best name for our public Wi-Fi network. It was like Charm City free Wi-Fi. And we did a little session with some neighborhood leaders, and they said the first thing you want to do is change the name. Like, excuse me? He said, all folks want to know is that it is free, it's in Be More, and it's Wi-Fi. So we changed the name to Free Be More Wi-Fi so that anyone can tap in.
That's great. You brought up an interesting point about the affordability and having a single ISP provider. You're not unique in the sense that a lot of areas only have one provider, or maybe I know for a long time out in Washington County where I grew up, you had a local company in Tatum, cable, now Antietam Broadband was the majority carrier for the county, but then you had a pocket near Hancock, another pocket near Sharpsburg was exclusively Comcast, and now Comcast is entering there. And so people are happy to have that competition now there. But I was wondering like how much your office may work with like consumer protection offices through either the state or other agencies about, pricing and competition and things like that. Because, you touched on like a common complaint I think we've all tried to do. It's like you got locked in for like the 2-year agreement, perhaps you had a low price, and the old model, I would say 10 plus years ago, you used to be able to negotiate a lower price or have that, I only need 2 items or only need 1. And then there'd be like a real savings. And now it feels like you're being gaslit where it's like, well, actually, if you do less, you're going to be paying more. So let's keep having the 3, which is not going to be any cheaper, but it's just going to be the same price. Doesn't it look like a savings to you? And you're like, well, I literally have no other option. And
Yeah,
so I'm sure you've heard that comment a lot.
we do. So, if you live in Baltimore City, you hear often that residents in the county surrounding, they have more options. They have Verizon and they have Comcast, and they have more options. And then one of the questions I have gotten, especially when I'm out talking to neighborhood associations in particular, the number one question for me is, why is that? Why is there just one company? And I'll tell you, the answer really is it's an equity issue. So in Baltimore City, Comcast, then I have to be very clear, Comcast has been a great partner. They work with us on a number of important issues. They are always at the table. They have been a great partner. So I want to make sure that everyone hears me say that. Yes, they have been a great partner. But what I'm hearing from other ISPs, other internet service providers, about why they aren't in Baltimore, it's because fiber is king and fiber is expensive. And so to pull fiber through all of Baltimore City in order to compete with Comcast is going to cost millions. And a lot of ISPs just they have not decided to make that investment. So that's where my office comes in. So what we've done is we have expanded the infrastructure, our fiber infrastructure, to just about every neighborhood in Baltimore City, so that a new ISP can piggyback, we call it piggyback, but they can lease our infrastructure in order to provide service in any number of neighborhoods in Baltimore City. That is the one thing I am most proud of in the time that I've spent in this role, is that our team, they've been able to really level the playing field in Baltimore City. And again, we've got at least 2 new internet service providers entering the Baltimore City market in 2025. That is massive. One of them is going to make an announcement in June, and I've been told not to say who they are just yet. But in this year, for Baltimore City residents, this year things are changing, and that's really important. because not only is the internet, a lot of us take the internet for granted. Not only is it important, but you got to understand that nowadays, 80% of jobs are now online, right? 92% of US jobs require digital skills. So it's not enough to be able to get online. You got to be able to figure out, you got to know how to use the computer and navigate online. So it's not just a great asset or resource to have in your home. It honestly, now it's a utility. It's the difference. I stutter. It is the difference between thriving and surviving in this economy.
Talking about affordable internet and free internet, UMB, we've been doing our part. We've been a strong partner with Waves, which used to be known as Project Waves, installing Wi-Fi towers, antennas, and relays on buildings in West Baltimore. That's both on the top of the UMB Community Engagement Center and over at the Poppleton Biopark Garage. A lot of that happened during the pandemic, and I know that they had connected upwards of 300 families to free internet. And I know that they're doing similar work thanks to a grant through the city, the Connect Baltimore grant program. How important has that grant program been and Waves and trying to kind of fill that gap?
Great question. So Waves is a local nonprofit internet service provider. They've been operating now from the early days of COVID. And you know what, Charles? Their business model has changed a wee bit, and we have supported this new version of Waves. So initially, to your point, Waves was using Wi-Fi towers. And that's a great option, creates a mesh network. It's a great option, but it doesn't give you the reliability because you got to have that line of sight. Your equipment has to be in clear line of sight of the antenna. And if something happens, then you lose connectivity. So Waves, they are now in the fiber business. They have partnered with a local company, and they are able to use fiber to do lots of connections all over the city. We recently gave them a $2 million grant to continue that work. And through that work, thus far, we gave them, I think we approved them just this year. Thus far, they have 13 apartment buildings connected. And out of those 13, over 727 residents are now getting free internet through Waves, and they've only just begun. So it's really important where we can to help build the capacity of local internet service providers, because Waves understands the community. They partner very well with property owners. They can get in, they provide the connections, but they go a step further. They were also a partner with us on our 50,000 Chromebook giveaway initiative. So they were able to, quite a few of, first let me go back. So we partnered with Pratt Library. We got a grant from the state to distribute 50,000 Chromebooks. And Waves, they were able to distribute a lot of those Chromebooks through their customers in a number of these properties. So they are an important and strategic partner.
Are they replacing the Wi-Fi towers with the fiber, or are they still leaving some of the old infrastructure up for the neighborhoods that they partnered with?
I think they're doing both. I think
Okay.
their work there into the fiber world is relatively new. So I think that we're going to see a great expansion from Waves in the future.
Okay, great.
So Kenya, you mentioned in a WYPR interview recently how it's important to have Wi-Fi available to someone versus a computer lab, a freestanding type computer lab. Is there still a place for public computer labs?
All righty. So right now in Baltimore City, about 60% of homes have a dedicated wireline connection. That means that they have fiber, or for Comcast uses coaxial connection, but they have a connection to their home. What a lot of folks who don't have a dedicated line at home, they rely on Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi. So what we've done is, knowing that folks want to have this continuity of connectivity. You want to be able to, if you're home and you have connection in your home, you're great to use it at home. But the moment you leave your house, you have to get to the next Wi-Fi location if you don't have a data plan on your cell phone. And we know quite a few Baltimore City residents don't have a data plan. They on a month-to-month plan. So what we've done is we have partnered with senior centers and 8 senior centers, and 46 recreation centers now have indoor and outdoor public Wi-Fi. But we didn't stop there, because it isn't enough to just have the connection. Wi-Fi or broadband is just the connection. What does it mean to be able to do your homework on a cell phone, right? You have to also have a device. So we brokered a deal between Enoch Pratt Library and the Baltimore City Department of Recreation and Parks to deploy Chromebooks to every recreation center that does not already have a computer lab. So that is roughly 20 recreation centers that do not have a dedicated computer lab. So let me explain what the landscape looks like now. I want you to imagine that you are a third grader living in Baltimore City. You may have a cell phone that your parents gave you. When you're home, you have siblings and parents that are also using the computer. If you want to get on that computer to either do your homework or just to go on Facebook or TikTok, right? So it may be a line at home if you only have one device. So now, in all Baltimore City neighborhoods that have access to a rec center, you can go to the rec center, you can borrow a device, use that device on site, and tap into our public Wi-Fi. And all of this is for free. And as long as the rec center is open, you can use that device. I have heard a couple of stories where young people have pushed the envelope and kept the rec center open a little longer than needed, but you can now you can conduct business, you can have a telehealth appointment, you can do whatever you need to do now in a rec center using one of these devices. So now so to make sure I'm answering your question, Dana, you can now access through public Wi-Fi a device and connectivity in a rec center. Now, if you are at a senior center, our senior centers are a little different. If you are at a senior center, one of our 8, you can access the public Wi-Fi. That's easy, indoor and outdoor. But I got to tell you, Dana, what we learned from older adults, they say they do not like the mouse pad. I didn't know this. They do not like the mouse pad. They don't want a Chromebook or anything they want an actual mouse. Better yet, what they told us was, can I just get a tablet? They just want a tab. They want to be able to hold it in their hand and use the tablet. So what we are doing is we are outfitting our 8 senior centers with devices, and not just tablets, not just computers. Okay, Charles, I want you all to imagine, because again, with older adults, you got to help them learn the skills, right? So I'm tickled to report this, but it's an electronic bingo. So I want you just for a second, imagine if everybody had an electronic bingo card that also has an electronic bingo, a game that's reporting the numbers, but it gives our older adults an opportunity to practice some of the skills that they are learning. We're also using virtual reality goggles and technology at our senior centers to give our older adults some other world experiences. So yes, you can learn digital skills through virtual reality, but you can also take a trip to, I don't know, to Kenya. My name is Kenya. You can take a trip to Kenya. If you can imagine, Google Earth has this interface, there's a program through virtual reality where you can experience other countries. You can take a trip to Italy if you like. So having those kind of enrichment activities at our senior centers has been game changing. It's making sure that our older adults are still very much engaged. They are learning the skills. They are experiencing the broadband connectivity. And so for us, it's a win-win-win.
So they just are bypassing that built-in mouse pad. They just want to go right to, AI.
Right to AI. So
Or-
I guess if we want to
or-
be on the cutting edge of technology, go to a senior center in Baltimore City.
There you go. And so what you're basically saying is the old time computer labs really are kind of fading away and just becoming more modernized, more
Yeah.
catered to what people need.
Even in our rec centers, the ones that don't have, some of them have dedicated computer labs. Those are much larger locations, and they use those for training. But when you think about how you use your computer at home, like in Middle Branch is a recreation center in Cherry Hill. You can borrow a computer and just sit on one of the sofas right near the front door, relax, you know, surfing the web, right? You don't have to sit in front of the computer. It isn't nailed to the table, but it provides a more relaxed, a social environment that lets down that barrier to entry for a lot of folks who have some anxiety around using computers. So computer labs have their role, especially for training. But when you want to just surf the net, you want that same experience out out in the community that you may have at home. This partnership has allowed us to do that.
So Kenya, when you are looking at cities, say across the country, and you
Mhm.
might identify a city who's doing something really great, they're making a difference. What is it that you're bringing home to Baltimore that you're saying this is what we should be doing here? Like, let's figure out and implement what they're doing that's working in our own city.
Okay. You know what? There are so many great examples
Short answer. Short
that
answer.
I have brought here. I'll tell you one from my smart city days. I was on a panel again at my tenure with the Baltimore City Office of Information and Technology. I've worn quite a few hats. One of them was as our smart city strategist. So I was on a panel with someone from New Orleans. And they said, part of the challenge is our residents really want to understand how we're using our city watch cameras, how a 311 actually operates when you submit a request for service. How does that work? Why am I not getting the feedback? So what New Orleans did was they got a van that they outfitted with all this technology, and they take the van into communities, open up the back doors, and then allow the residents to take a peek into the technical world, I guess, of New Orleans government. Well, I brought that idea back to Baltimore. We are getting a van. The van will be outfitted with our public Wi-Fi, so I can park it in a neighborhood, turn it on, and everyone in about a 50-foot, don't quote me on the distance, but everyone in the vicinity will be able to tap into our public Wi-Fi. We will be able to open up the back doors and help residents learn more about what we're doing in Baltimore City in terms of technology. Also under BCID is our City Watch program, and a lot of folks have questions about our Crime Watch cameras. Well, we can show you what our Crime Watch cameras are doing. So that's one of the things that I brought back that I'm really, really excited about. And I think we're going to go live with our van this fall.
Oh, nice.
That sounds like basically the 21st century bookmobile almost. Like
Yes.
bring the books to the people while you're bringing technology to the people.
Yes.
Wheel it around. That'd be really cool. We are in the creator economy, and people, they are creating, and not just content. They're creating tangible things thanks to technology. And we just had a recent announcement that our Office of Community and Civic Engagement just launched a new partnership with OpenWorks, which is one of the nation's largest nonprofit makerspaces. So they're going to be expanding the programming and the access to the hands-on makerspace that we have for West Baltimore residents. And I just think it's really cool to be able to do or learn 3D printing, laser cutting, different sewing techniques to make different things, and vinyl design. What OpenWorks is helping us do is be the operating partner for Stephen Mim Dubin Makerspace at the Community Engagement Center. So I know they have a presence throughout the city. And we just talked about computer labs and their roles. Well, this is a different lab for a very different reason, a newer technology. So, um, how do you view the rise of maker spaces and their role within the city?
I think that it is great. So let me just say, I am a member of the Baltimore Tool Library. And when I made my first coffee table, I went to Home Depot and bought a whole bunch of tools. So I not only do I approve, but I'm also a member of the Makerspace. And I'll tell you, one of the most amazing makerspaces that I've seen here in Baltimore City is at the Enoch Pratt Central Library. But their space is restricted for teens only. They have 3D printing, they have Cricuts, they have everything that you mentioned, Charles. They have it in a restricted area for teens only, which I think is an amazing investment. And I think, I'll tell you, OpenWorks specifically, but just as an example, but OpenWorks did something kind of awesome early days of COVID. This is a great example of the importance of the makerspace, because they created these charging stations, these solar powered charging stations that also emit a Wi-Fi signal. And they had two different models. One was mobile, so you can set it up and move it around, and the other was pretty stationary. We actually funded them in our first round of grants. But that just gives you an example of the ingenuity and innovation that's come out of the makerspaces. You see some very interesting solutions to everyday problems. And I have now that I'm in tech, from law school to tech, now that I'm in tech, I very much appreciate those, I call that smart city designs, because that's the place where people and technology meet.
Very cool. I know I've recently been in our makerspace and just watching the community in there using the different, I wouldn't call them products, but the different things that they can use, like you said,
Tools,
the
yeah.
Cricut and the tools. And it is really exciting to see somebody create something with their own hands that they take home and they feel good about, and it's functional. They can use it. So that too. Okay, I have a parting question for you, Kenya. You're
I'm
super
ready.
savvy. We've learned not only are you social work, your law, and your tech. What's your go-to? PC or a Mac?
Oh, I'm a PC Android girl for the rest of my life.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
I am Android. I am PC. I just think that it's so much easier to use for the rest of my life. It's funny. In government, I have a lot of friends that work for federal government. They're iPhones. They are Mac.
Yeah.
I don't understand it at all. But the moment there's this ongoing battle that we have, the moment I lose my phone or I can't access, they're like, see, if you had just switched to iPhone, you wouldn't have these problems. And the moment they get locked up, like, wait, if you just switch to Android,
Right. Once they get their virus.
once they get their vibe. So yeah, I am definitely a PC Android kind of girl.
Well, Charles, I owe you $5. Darn. Well, Kenya, thank you so much. If there's anything we've left out, be sure to let us know. We'll add it to the show notes, but we appreciate you being on. We certainly, as I said at the onset, we love to promote our UMB alumni, especially when you're doing really meaningful, important work like you are. So thank you. It was wonderful meeting you, and we wish you continued successes and look forward to seeing where you are in 10 years, because I'm sure you're going to find a new path, because you just seem to keep growing.
That is very true. Thank you.
The UMB Pulse with Charles Chalet and Dana Rampolla is a UMB Office of Communications and Public Affairs production. Edited by Charles Chalet, marketing by Dana Rampolla.